If you really want to understand what makes someone hooked on you, you have to start by looking at what keeps the human mind engaged in anything. Think about your favorite TV show. Why do you keep watching episode after episode? It's not because every moment is thrilling, or because every scene is packed with action. It's because the show knows how to pull you between tension and release. You get invested in the characters, a problem arises, your emotions build, and then, just when you can't take the suspense anymore, it gives you relief, resolution, or sometimes just a twist that makes you lean in even further. That rhythm of emotional ups and downs is addictive. It doesn't just hold your attention, it makes you crave the next moment. Now, relationships are no different. Attraction isn't just about whether someone looks good, or whether they have compatible values. What makes you unforgettable to a man is the emotional experience you create when he's around you. And here's where the psychology comes in. The brain doesn't get addicted to neutrality. It doesn't latch on to flat, predictable, repetitive experiences. It becomes captivated by variety, by contrast, by the feeling of being pulled between different emotional states that stimulate different parts of us. When you're always serious, always deep, always intense, it can feel heavy, but if you swing the pendulum and you're always playful, always light, always easy going, it can feel shallow. The magic is in combining those dimensions, allowing someone to feel the joy of laughter one moment and the depth of meaningful connection the next. That dynamic range is what sticks, because in that space a man feels not just entertained but understood, not just excited but also safe. And when someone feels both those things in one person, they don't want to let it go. It's why some people leave a lasting mark on us, even when they're no longer in our lives. You might look back at an old relationship and wonder, why do I still think about this person? Often, it's not because they were perfect. It's because the emotions you felt with them were vivid. They could make you laugh until your stomach hurt, but also sit with you in your pain. They could challenge you with a teasing remark, then soften it with affection. That combination created contrast, and that contrast left an imprint. Now, let's take this out of theory and into something practical. If you want to create emotional contrast, it's not about inventing drama or playing games. It's about giving yourself permission to bring your full range into the connection. Maybe you're on a date and the conversation turns deep. You're talking about values, goals, the meaning of life. It's powerful. But then you notice it's getting heavy, so you flip the energy with a joke, or a playful comment, or even a mischievous smile that lightens the moment. That pivot makes the depth feel more alive, not suffocating. On the flip side, maybe you're being playful, telling funny stories, keeping the mood light, and then you choose to reveal something vulnerable, something that matters to you. Suddenly he's drawn in on a different level. That switch makes him feel like he's accessing a part of you that's not on display for everyone, and that sense of contrast creates intimacy. What's fascinating is that this concept isn't new, it's hardwired into us. Psychologists talk about something called the opponent process theory of emotion, which essentially says that our emotional system thrives on opposites. Pleasure feels richer when it follows a challenge, relief feels sweeter after stress, excitement feels more electric when contrasted with calm. This is why roller coasters exist. People line up to experience fear and thrill because it makes the relief at the end exhilarating. In relationships, you don't need roller coasters, but you do need those shifts. You need moments that surprise, moments that soothe, moments that excite, and moments that ground. So ask yourself, are you showing up in a way that gives someone that range of experience? Or are you defaulting to one mode? Always the funny one, always the serious one, always the caretaker. Because when you get stuck in one mode, no matter how good that mode is, it eventually flattens. What makes you addictive isn't being everything at once. It's allowing yourself to be multi-dimensional. And here's the part that's really liberating. You don't have to perform or fake it. Contrast naturally emerges when you give yourself permission to be real. Real people are not one-dimensional. You have sides of you that are playful and sides that are profound. You have moments where you're strong and moments where you're vulnerable. Instead of hiding those shifts, you lean into them. That's what creates richness in connection. That's what makes someone lean forward and think, I never know what I'm going to get with her, but I always know it's going to feel alive. If you can embody that, you won't just capture attention, you'll hold it. Because the truth is, people don't get addicted to perfection. They get addicted to feeling. And when you give a man a spectrum of feeling, when you can make him laugh, challenge him, soften him, and inspire him, then being around you doesn't just feel good, it feels unforgettable. And that's the power of emotional contrast. Perfect, let's take key point 2, the art of selective availability, and expand it into an 800-word segment in Matthew Hussey's tone: conversational, smart, psychologically grounded, and practical, flowing naturally from the last point about emotional contrast. One of the most overlooked elements in attraction is how we manage our availability. We often assume that to win someone over, we need to give them more of ourselves, more attention, more time, more effort. It feels intuitive. If I like someone, shouldn't I show them that by making myself completely available? But the paradox is this: the more we make ourselves available without boundaries, the less value our presence seems to hold. Not because we're not valuable, but because psychology tells us that humans naturally assign more worth to things that feel scarce. Think about the difference between water and diamonds. Water keeps us alive, yet because it's abundant, we take it for granted. Diamonds, by contrast, have no survival value, but because they are rare, people are willing to sacrifice enormously to possess them. This isn't to say you should reduce yourself to a commodity. It's about understanding the way the human mind works. When something feels like it requires no effort to obtain, our brain unconsciously lowers its perceived value. But when something requires investment, when it's not automatically ours, we lean in, we work harder, and we begin to attach deeper meaning to it. This is why selective availability is so powerful. It's not about withdrawing or playing manipulative games. It's about demonstrating through your behavior that your life is already rich, purposeful, and full before this person came into it. You are not waiting to be chosen, you are already choosing yourself, and he has the opportunity to earn a place in a life that is thriving without him. That shift changes everything. Instead of feeling like he can have your attention anytime, he recognizes that it's a privilege. And privilege, by its very nature, commands respect. Let's make this practical. Imagine someone you're dating texts you. They want to see you tonight. If you were planning to work on a project, meet a friend, or simply take care of yourself, what do? Many people would cancel their own plans out of fear of missing the opportunity. They think, if I say no, he might lose interest. But what's really happening? If you constantly rearrange your life at a moment's notice, you communicate that your time isn't valuable. Over time, this erodes the respect that attraction depends on. On the other hand, when you respond honestly, I'd love to, but I already have plans, let's do another night. You're not rejecting him. You're reinforcing the truth that your life matters. You're saying, I'm excited to see you, but I don't disappear into thin air just because you've arrived. That subtle boundary doesn't push him away. It pulls him in. Because now, being with you feels like something he has to show up for, not something he can take for granted. Now, let's connect this to psychology. There's a well-studied phenomenon called the investment principle. It suggests that we value things more when we've invested effort into them. If you've ever put together a piece of IKEA furniture, you know what I mean. The finished product might be wobbly, but because you worked for it, you feel attached to it. The same is true in relationships. When a man invests energy, whether it's planning a date, carving out time, or even working to win more of your attention, he begins to value you more deeply. Not because you manipulated him, but because effort creates attachment. Selective availability is what creates the space for this principle to take root. If you're always there, always responding instantly, always free to drop everything, you deny him the chance to invest. But when your time is given generously, yet not indiscriminately, he experiences that sense of effort. He feels the difference between when he has truly earned your attention versus when it was just handed over, and that distinction makes your presence addictive. Of course, the key here is balance. Too much unavailability can feel like rejection or indifference, and that kills connection. This isn't about withholding affection or playing hard to get for the sake of ego. It's about aligning your availability with your truth. If you genuinely want to spend time with him, you should. But if you're giving up your priorities, abandoning your passions, or shrinking your world just to orbit around his, you're not creating attraction, you're creating dependency. And dependency, in the long run, is the enemy of desire. Here's what makes this philosophy so liberating. It means you don't have to perform. You don't have to calculate every response or follow a script. You just have to live your life fully. When you pursue your passions, nurture your friendships, stay committed to your goals, and take care of yourself, you naturally become selectively available. Your time is scarce because you've filled your life with things that matter. That reality speaks louder than any line or tactic ever could. And when he realizes that being with you means stepping into a life that is already abundant, he sees you differently. You're not a void waiting to be filled. You're a force he wants to be a part of. And the moment a man recognizes that, his respect deepens, his effort increases, and his desire to be close to you grows stronger, not out of obligation, but out of genuine admiration. So the next time you feel tempted to overgive, to over-adjust, to overextend yourself just to keep someone interested, remind yourself of this. It's not the constant availability that makes someone value you. It's the selective availability. It's the space that allows them to invest. And the more someone invests in you, the more irreplaceable you become in their mind. Because at the end of the day, love isn't about being there every second. It's about being there with enough presence and enough depth that when you are there, it matters. Great, let's expand key point 3a, creating an emotional imprint through storytelling and shared moments into a flowing 800-word segment in Matthew Hussey's signature style, engaging, psychologically grounded, clear, and motivating. If you think about the people you can't forget, the ones who still cross your mind years after they're gone, it's rarely because of something they bought you or the logical reasons you thought they were a good fit. It's almost always because of the way they made you feel. They left an imprint. And the truth is, human beings are not addicted to logic. We're addicted to emotion. Our brains don't replay facts. They replay experiences that stirred something inside us. That's why if you want a man to become addicted to you, not in the shallow sense of playing games, but in the deeper, lasting sense, you have to learn how to create moments that he remembers, not because of the words alone, but because of the feelings those words awakened. Psychologists call this emotional encoding. The stronger the emotion tied to an experience, the deeper it's stored in memory. That's why we can remember exactly where we were during life-changing events, but forget what we had for breakfast 2 days ago. Emotion is the glue of memory. Now, how does this apply to relationships? It means that if every interaction with you feels routine, predictable, or transactional, it won't stick. He might like you, he might enjoy you, but he won't feel that pull when you're not around. But when you create moments that stir him, moments that have texture, surprise, or meaning, you begin to live rent-free in his mind. You become more than a person he's dating. You become a story he can't stop retelling to himself. The beauty is, this doesn't require grand gestures or expensive trips. Often it's the small but intentional choices that leave the deepest imprint. Think of an inside joke you build together. It might seem silly, but inside jokes create a private world, a shorthand that belongs only to the two of you. When he thinks of that joke days later and smiles to himself, he's not just remembering the joke, he's remembering you. That's imprinting. Or maybe it's sharing a moment of vulnerability. Let's say you open up about something meaningful from your past, not in a heavy or dramatic way, but in a way that gives him a window into who you are. That's powerful, because most of us move through the world in masks. When someone pulls the mask back, even just for a second, it feels electric. He remembers it because it wasn't ordinary, it was real. Then there are moments of shared adventure, doing something new together, whether it's traveling, trying a cooking class, or even just wandering into a part of the city you've never explored, creates novelty. And novelty, according to neuroscience, releases dopamine, the same chemical tied to excitement and reward. When his brain associates that dopamine hit with you, he doesn't just recall the activity, he recalls the feeling of aliveness he experienced with you. That's the kind of memory that makes someone eager to come back for more. The point is this: you don't need to be constantly performing or planning extravagant dates. What you need is intention to turn ordinary interactions into meaningful ones. If you're at dinner, instead of sticking to surface-level questions like, "How was your day?" you could ask, "What's something that made you laugh this week?" Or, "What's the most courageous thing you've ever done?" Questions like that shift the energy. They deepen the conversation, they create texture, and texture is what makes an experience stand out in his memory. Here's where philosophy meets psychology. Human beings long to be moved. We want experiences that shake us out of autopilot, that make us feel more alive, more connected, more understood. That's why people chase art, music, film, and adventure. But in relationships, we forget this. We think consistency alone is enough. And while consistency is necessary for trust, it's not enough for desire. Desire needs emotional moments, those spikes that wake us up and remind us, this is special. Now let me give you a practical shift you can make. Instead of asking, how do I impress him? Start asking, what do we experience together? Because at the end of the day, what he'll carry with him isn't a list of your accomplishments or how flawless you looked. What he'll carry is how he felt in your presence. Did he feel lighter? Did he feel challenged? Did he feel like he was part of something bigger than just small talk? Those are the things that create addiction. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to force it. If you're genuinely engaged in life, if you're curious, playful, and present, you will naturally create these moments. When you allow yourself to laugh freely, when you share your passions, when you risk being vulnerable, when you invite him into experiences instead of routines, you become unforgettable. You stop being just another person in his orbit and start being the person his mind keeps circling back to. Because love, at its core, isn't about possession, it's about resonance. It's about two people creating a series of moments that echo long after they're gone. And when you commit to creating those moments, through presence, vulnerability, playfulness, and adventure, you don't just capture attention, you leave an emotional fingerprint. And once that fingerprint is there, it's nearly impossible to erase. So remember this: people don't get addicted to faces, to status, or to perfect routines. They get addicted to the way you make them feel. And if you can be intentional about creating moments worth remembering, you'll never have to worry about being forgotten. Excellent. Let's now expand key point 4, the magnetic pull of self-possession, into a rich 800-word segment that ties naturally into the speech, keeping Matthew Hussey's intellectual yet warm, conversational style. If you think back to the most magnetic people you've ever met, you'll notice something fascinating. It wasn't always their looks, their charm, or even their achievements that made them unforgettable. It was the way they carried themselves. There's a quality in certain people that makes them stand out without trying, that makes them feel like they don't need to prove themselves, because they already know their value. That quality is self-possession, the ability to own who you are, to stand grounded in your own worth, and to live from a place of fullness rather than lack. This is one of the deepest psychological truths about attraction. Confidence is magnetic not because it's loud, but because it's steady. Most of us think of confidence as something external, walking into a room, commanding attention, dominating the conversation, but true confidence doesn't need a performance. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be seen. It quietly radiates the message, I am enough, whether you notice me or not. And that energy is irresistible. Here's why. Most people walk through life carrying insecurities like invisible weights. They look for external validation to make them feel lighter. They crave constant reassurance. Am I good enough? Do you like me? Do I measure up? When you're with someone like that, you can feel the pull. It's draining because you sense that their self-worth is resting in your hands. But when you meet someone self-possessed, it feels different. There's no desperate energy, no neediness, no silent plea for approval. Instead, there's a lightness. You're not carrying their worth, they are. And because of that, you can relax around them. This relaxation is part of what makes them so addictive. When you're with someone who doesn't need you to complete them, you feel more free to be yourself. And paradoxically, that freedom is what makes you want to stay. This is the heart of the magnetic pull of self-possession. It doesn't force attraction, it invites it. It says, I'm whole on my own, but if you want to join me, you're welcome too. That kind of invitation is infinitely more compelling than neediness ever could be. Think of it this way. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is hungry. The air feels tense, competitive, even desperate, because everyone is trying to grab what they lack. Now imagine walking into a room where someone is already full. They're enjoying themselves, laughing, engaging, not because they need attention, but because they're already satisfied. Who are you drawn to? Always the one who feels full. Because fullness is rare, and rarity is magnetic. Now, here's where philosophy enters the picture. Self-possession is more than just confidence. It's alignment. It's living in a way that reflects your values, your passions, your standards. It's refusing to betray yourself for approval. When you live this way, you don't just attract others. You attract the right others. You filter out the people who are only looking for someone to use or control, and you magnetize the people who are looking for a true partner. That's the difference between surface level attraction and sustainable desire. But let's make this practical. How do you actually embody self-possession? You start by drawing boundaries. Boundaries are not walls, they're doors. They say, this is how close you can come, and this is how I expect to be treated if you want to come closer. Without boundaries, you lose yourself in relationships. And when you lose yourself, you lose the very thing that made you attractive in the first place. You also embody self-possession by cultivating your own life. Pursue your passions, nurture your friendships, take care of your body, build your career, fill your life with things that matter, so that when someone steps into it, they're stepping into a world already alive with purpose. That's intoxicating. A man doesn't become addicted to you because you orbit around him. He becomes addicted because you have your own gravity, and he feels pulled into your orbit. And finally, self-possession means being at peace with imperfection. The most confident people are not flawless. They're simply comfortable being seen as they are. They don't crumble when someone doesn't like them, because they know their worth doesn't hang on external approval. This is liberating for both you and the person you're with, because instead of constantly trying to perform, you can simply be, and being yourself fully is the most attractive thing you'll ever do. When you bring all of this together, the emotional contrast we talked about earlier, the selective availability, the creation of unforgettable moments, what ties it all together is self-possession, because without it, those other things become tactics. And tactics without authenticity fall flat. But when they flow from someone who is truly self-possessed, they don't feel like tactics at all. They feel like truth. And that truth is what a man becomes addicted to. Not the mask you wear, not the performance you put on, but the grounded, radiant, self-possessed version of you that doesn't need him, yet chooses him. That paradox, I don't need you, but I desire you, is the most powerful form of attraction you can ever create. So let me leave you with this. If you want to be unforgettable, don't chase attention. Cultivate self-possession. Because the world is full of people trying to be noticed. But the rarest person in the room is the one who doesn't need to be noticed to feel whole. And that person, the one who already shines without anyone else's approval, is the one everyone can't help but notice.